Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we will break down how AI agents work inside Oracle Fusion Studios. So we are going to focus on three types of agents which we have in AI Agent Studio, that is worker agents, supervisor agents, and then workflow agents. So we'll try to understand what they are, when to use them, and how they come together to drive real enterprise automation within Oracle Cloud ERP, Human Capital Management, Supply Chain, CX, etc. If you're new here or have not subscribed, I would recommend subscribing to this channel so you don't miss any update. And if we have not met before, hi, I am Arpit Paliwal, an Oracle ACE and certified ERP AI consultant. All right, let's dive into the topic. So now to make this really simple and relatable, right? I'm going to use a hospital analogy to understand the difference between these three agent types, that worker agent, the specialist, the supervisor agent, the dynamic coordinator, and workflow agent, the orchestrator. So starting with the worker agent, right? So as I was saying, I'm going to use a hospital analogy. So let's try to understand worker as in the worker, like let's say I am feeling I'm ill, right? Maybe I got some cold or some fever, or maybe I have some different issue, right? So there will be different specialization of each of the doctors or the team, right? Let's say if I have to get my scanning done, maybe for a cancer, I will go to the radiologist, right, to get the scan done, right? So we that how that will be, let's say if a patient comes in and gets an x-ray, the scan will be sent to the radiologist because radiologist is going to do the x-ray. That's his specialty, right? Now the radiologist will not decide the treatment. They do not schedule a surgery. They do not even most of the time speak also to the patient, right? Their entire job is just to look at image and tell you what they see, right? That's what the purpose of radiologist. And next step, what we are going to do, we are going to see a doctor, which will tell me what to do next based on that, what radiologist said. So that's the worker agent. In this case, it can be a pathologist or the radiologist. They are specialized in what they do. Now coming on to the supervisor agent, right? Now let's say a different patient walks in, right? And he said, let's say, doctor, I have chest pain and fatigue, right? That's it. No scan yet, no test result as of now, and we do not know what actually the issue is, right? As a doctor. So attending doctor, what they will do, they don't follow a checklist, right? That for each thing. They'll think, right? That they will ask questions, how actually, from when we are feeling this, how we are feeling, right? What kind of pain, where exactly you are feeling, and based on that they will break down the problem and tell what actually this patient has to do, right? They will order a chest x-ray or maybe some pathology test, blood test, right, accordingly based on that. And then that's where our radiology worker agent or the pathology worker agent or any other worker agent comes in, because when my doctor is saying, okay, let's get this test order, then doctor will is not going to do the test. He's just telling, okay, get your test done this. Now he will go to a pathologist to get the blood test done, or a radiologist to get a scanning done, maybe x-ray or PET scan, whatever it is, right? So, and these all things will get put out in the medical history. Then doctor will again see and finally tell us based on the results that this is what should be done, right? So that's what the supervisor agent analogy is, that he will just divert, right? He will do discovery and then decide, okay, which worker agent I need to assign it to, and then once worker agent gives the final output, it will then again process and then give my final result, right? So there is no fixed path. There will be dynamic decisions coordinating multiple specialists here, right? He's taking help, like an as a doctor is taking help of maybe pathologist or radiologist or any other worker team, right, from a hospital perspective. And likewise, if let's say we understand from the workflow agent perspective, right? So let's consider that full hospital system, right? Let's zoom out, right? Okay, wait. Let's zoom out a little bit, right? The hospital system. Now, what that mean? From an individual doctor, we are moving to the entire hospital. So there is a specific set of flow, right? Let's say when a patient is admitted, right? Hospital does not improvise. There is a protocol, right? Every patient every time has to go through the same structured journey. Get registered, get admission under a specific doctor. Then doctor will do all those tests. They will receive a result. So that will be medical history, which will be maintained. And then at final, once everything has been done, they will be discharged with the billing, right? So each step is predefined step. We know what is going to happen next, right? each handoff is documented. Every action is auditable, because in healthcare we cannot afford ambiguity. You can, and we cannot have step, let's say, billing happen before, although there will be billing which happens when the certain criteria get reached, but again it will not be like that I'm doing a discharge process first and then getting the admission, right? So we know that first admission will happen and then the discharge will happen, right? So they absolutely need a paper trail, step by step, what is going to happen. And that's what the workflow agent is with respect to the Oracle Fusion. And it may call the doctor, it may go to the radiologist, right? Likewise in case of hospital, right? It contains a both. So it contains everything. It's a combination of everything because it's a step by step coordination. Now we are going to look at from each perspective with this analogy how that will look like from Oracle angle or the Oracle side perspective. So starting with the worker agent, right? So in Oracle Fusion Studio, the worker agent is a single purpose AI agent, the expert who's really, really good at a specific thing. And it is going to configure with a prompt, a tool, and a output schema. This is not, this is again optional, but output schema most of the time is going to be JSON output which you're going to receive. And there is a thing called topics. I'm not going to talk about topics here, but topics is just like a prompt which you're doing. It's just the additional version which can be assigned to a agent. Okay, just to provide some more context. Okay, so one responsibility, there is no coordination logic, no decision making beyond is domain, just like a radiologist whose report can be used by emergency room, right? Or maybe ICU, maybe some OPD, or maybe some internal team, surgery team, right? So likewise here in work, in this case for Oracle, worker agent can be used by multiple agent teams. It can be used by workflow agent teams. It can be used by supervisor agent teams. So it can be used multiple times across multiple agent teams. Okay. Now, so it's like build once, use across your entire Oracle environment if that specialization requires things, right? If you have to do these things, we can call this worker agent, right? So it's like a radiologist in hospital analogy, laser focused on one task, delivering precise result every time. Now let's look at some real world example, right? So a good example for now can be invoice data extraction, because as you are aware, there is a multi-file runtime processor tool released by Oracle, right? Although there will be functionality getting added that we can use that directly within our workflow agents, but for supervisor flow of agents, we still have to get this done, right? Now, what we can do, we can create a worker agent that just only job is going to be whatever the runtime file we are uploading, it will get them processed. That is the only job for that worker agent. And it can be used in the workflow agent, it can be used in the supervisor agent teams, right? And what it is going to do, it is going to take that input for that file and then give me what are the details which you are fetching in a summary or in a JSON, whatever it is, right? It is going to fetch all these details. So that's what the worker agent is. It is focused on due to one specific task. In this case, it will be a invoice data extraction. It can be anything else, right? Even maybe something else, right? Maybe a text processing agent, right? That will only talk about how actually text works, what are the text configurations we have, and which percentage to consider in which cases, right? If just I need to look at. So that can be also a worker agent. So I will also talk about a worker agent when I'm going to talk about a supervisor agent teams. Okay, let's move on to the next, that is supervisor agent. That's a dynamic coordinator, goal driven reasoning first. So supervisor is a lead agent in hierarchical pattern, right? It receives an ambiguous goal, right? Dynamically decomposes it, delegates it to a right worker agent, synthesize everything into a coherent outcome, right? And LLM is the thing which is doing the reasoning, deciding which agent to call in what order, and based on what it learns along the way, this is your go-to pattern when the problem is open-ended, right? The path isn't predefined, right? And we need intelligence, like in case of uh, hospital analogy, the doctor uses his reasoning to tell you what test to be done. It's not like that you're only having fever and doctor is saying okay, get your scan done, right? He will just ask for a blood test only, right? So it is using its reasoning what to call, right? So one line to remember, supervisor agent team is like a attending doctor. It decides what needs to be done and who should do it, right? That means what should be done and which worker is to call. Let's look at from the example. Okay, So let's say I'm an accounts payable specialist, right? So let's say I raise a query which can be complex one, right? Maybe an invoice has a test discrepancy and maybe a payment holds or a processing error at once, right? All at once, I just said, right? And there is no single predefined path that handles all of that clearly, right? So this is where what supervisor agent will do, right? It when AP specialist sends that query to an agent, supervisor agent will receive it and immediately starts reasoning. What do I need to resolve? Okay, who are the right specialists to call? It does not follow a script. It routes dynamically, right? Based on the questions we are getting, right? So let's say if it was a tax discrepancy issue which was asked, then it will route to the tax tax processing agent. This is nothing but the worker agent. So supervisor agent is just a combination of multiple worker agent who is going to do the job based on the task which is being given by the user. Okay. Now, if let's say to validate the invoice detail against the PO, then it may go use agent 2, that is invoice processing agent, right? If let's say why the payment is on hold, it may use hold resolution agent to check the details and what is the correct resolution action are, right? So each of these worker agent are doing their specialist job, and then result flows back to the supervisor, and then supervisor synthesizes everything and giving the AP specialist a consolidated final answer, right? Here is what was wrong or what these agent find, or here maybe a recommended resolution. There's no fixed path, no rigid sequence, right? Just intelligence, right? It's just coordinating between all these worker agent, right? Just like your attending doctor, right? Patient arrive with multiple overlapping symptoms, and doctor will decide which test to run, call in the right specialist, right? Bring it all together into a diagnosis. So supervisor agent does exactly that. Maybe in this case for the payables team, which the example which we used. Now moving on to the final agent type, that is the workflow agents, right? So in AI Agent Studio, workflow agent is like connected sequence of node, each one performing a defined function. AI nodes for reasoning, logic node for branching, data node for reading and writing to the Fusion business objects, control node for the parallel task, steps, loops, human approval, and communication node for sending the email notification, right? And here is the beautiful part, right? Each of these are just the node, and there will be a step by step which we have to do, right? Like in our case of the hospital, right? It's not like that without getting admission everything will happen for the treatment, right? If surgery needs to be done, admission has to be done first, right? So likewise, there will be a specific step which has to be done first, and then the next step follows, right? So this is a step by step flow which will be done like a worker agent. So this is the pattern of basically auditable, repeatable enterprise processes, right? Where every step must happen in the right order every time without exception, right? Now, let's take a look from the example. And if you wanted to get more details on how this, what workflow agents are in detail and how, what actually these nodes are, which I talked about here, right? These nodes. I have a complete series on workflow agent, which I am creating right now. It's already half series is already uploaded onto the YouTube. You can go and check that out. But I'm just telling you that this, I'm not going to this much detail into each of these nodes because I have another playlist which is available for this. Now moving on to the example, right? So this example is from Oracle Accounts Receivable, and let's talk about a scenario, right? So let's say customer raises a dispute for an invoice. So what an AR specialist needs to investigate, resolve it, and notify the customer, right? So if we look at traditional approach, right? Email comes, then we are going to look at the invoices, and there will be multiple back and forth which happens, right? In case of dispute. And what we can do if we use a workflow agent, which will handle this entire journey, right? So let's what happens, right? Let's say we as an AR specialist user, the first one, we go and run this, right? We provide that this is the reason for this, okay, for this dispute, right? And we provide some dispute details. So what agent will do, agent will understand the user context, that this is the dispute reason, okay, and it uses an AI node to interpret the reason, maybe a pricing issue, a billing error, or something else entirely, right? And then it may fetches details, maybe transaction details from Oracle receivables, like details like line items, amount, maybe pulled in real time. And then now comes the intelligence if condition node that will evaluate based on the dispute, right? Whether it's a pricing issue, whether it's a billing issue, or it's just unknown, right? Then it may reject, right? So if it is a pricing issue, it will go ahead and call that maybe a worker agent to create a credit memo. Another way, it may go to step 4 to create a rebill, right? So it it is correcting and reissuing the invoice, rebill if you don't know. So that's what it is going in step by step. When this happens, then it will go this. Based on that, it will create credit memo. If this is not the case, then it will create a rebill, and then at finally the agent can send notification back to the customer or maybe a ARS specialist that this has been closed or a dispute has been created, right? So each of these step is documented, every step predefined, every branch mapped, every outcome is traceable, right? Just like the hospital analogy which we use, that is hospital admission protocol, right? Patient comes in and system knows exactly what happens at the admission. Then there will be it will go to that given floor, then the surgery will be done or treatment will be done, and then it will be discharged with the billing, right? So it happens like that. So now we understand each of these individual agent types. Now let's look at the critical design decision, right? You face every time you build in Oracle AI Agent Studio. So when you have complex business problem, do you want to create a workflow agent or a supervisor agent, right? So let's try to understand from this model. Basically, let's think about this way, right? Workflow agents are your structural teammate. They operate on deterministic rule based logic. Every step is predefined, the path is fixed. They are built for scenarios where we need compliance, auditability, or repeatability, right? And maybe a finance or HR task like extracting data from codes to create purchase requisition, right? So this is just like a step-by-step flow what is going to happen. And if you talk about supervisor agents, they are our dynamic team lead, right? They operate on a probabilistic goal-based reasoning. There is no fixed path. The agent decide what to do based on what it learns, right? As you have seen, right, from hospital, right? Doctor decide which test to be done. Likewise, if we seen the accounts payable example, we are just giving the question, and then supervisor agent was deciding whether it's related to tax issue or it's related to the processing or it's related to the hold issue, right? And then it is assigning the given worker agent for that issue and then final giving me answer, right? So the supervisor agent sign in ambiguous exploratory multi-domain task because it's a multi-agentic flow, right? So decision threshold is very simple. We just need to ask one question. Does the agent need to decide what to do next, or it just need to execute what we already defined? If the path is fixed, answer is simple, use a workflow agent. If the agent decides, then in that case is use a supervisor agent. And for the most complex enterprise scenario, you may have to use a hybrid, the best of both worlds, right? Because we can have workflow agents to be added or not. We can have the supervisor agents to be added as part of workflow agents. So that can be done. So we sometimes have to use a hybrid approach like that. So back to our like hospital analogy, the hospital protocol system is the workflow, attending doctor is supervisor, and the best hospital we run both. Likewise, it's a hybrid approach. Sometimes we have to use it for the complex scenarios. This is just labels which I talked that workflow agents are nothing but the structured backbone. Supervisor agents, dynamic reasoning. Worker agents are a specialist. Worker agent will be part of supervisor agent. Supervisor agent can have one worker agent or multiple worker agent in case of multi-agent processing. And workflow agent may or may not have supervisor agent or worker agent. It's based on the use case. It may call worker agent or the supervisor agent or another workflow agent itself. So that's it. Oracle Fusion gives you these three powerful primitives: workers, supervisors, and workflow, and a platform to compose them into a AI automation, right? So understanding the role of each agent type is the foundation because that will decide which agent type I have to create, right? And that's it for today. If this video helped you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I have a lot more Oracle Fusion AI content coming your way. And if you're already ready to start building, do check out my other playlist for workflow agents and how to series on AI Agent Studio. See you in the next one.